Hello, I'm Jim Kowalski, Habersham County Farm Bureau President, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Regional Political Forum. We are happy to sponsor tonight's forum, which will feature candidates for the House, the State House District 10, State Senate District 50, and the Georgia's 9th Congressional District. At this time, I'd like to call on special guest Jeffrey Harvey, the Director of Public Policy with Georgia Farm Bureau, to bring greetings. Jeffrey.
Thank you, President Kowalski. Thank you for hosting this event tonight and for the opportunity to take part in it. I'd like to first say thank you for the volunteers and for the staff that helped put this together. I do know that planning an event like this takes months of hard work and preparation, and that's in a non-COVID-19 environment. So thank you for pulling this together and doing it in an environment that's safe for all of us to be here. Our State Farm Bureau President, Gerald Long, he sends his regrets and would love to be here tonight, but he also remains sheltered in place. But if he were here tonight, he would want to thank you for the role that you play in the community and for providing your neighbors here in the community an opportunity to learn about these candidates and for them to be able to make an informed vote. In November, the winners of these races will be tasked with passing laws that everyone in our state and nation will be required to abide by. Our elected officials set policy for everything we do, from the amount of taxes we pay to how fast I can drive to get here tonight. Serving as an elected official is a job that shouldn't be taken lightly, but neither is your obligation as a voter. As citizens, we must engage. We must educate ourselves on the candidates and educate ourselves on the men and women that we elect to represent us and make sure they serve our community properly and serve us. Georgia Farm Bureau was founded to serve as the voice of farmers in the legislative arena. And one way we can help in this effort is to elect candidates who support agriculture and candidates that will ultimately support our efforts and in providing locally produced food and fiber for our people. For those of you watching at home tonight, welcome to the Habersham County Farm Bureau Political Forum. And if you're an undecided voter, we hope that tonight's event will help you in making your decision. But regardless of who you support, please take advantage of the opportunity to get out and vote. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to call on our special invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Chip Brooks, which is the Habersham County Farm Bureau Legislative Chair. Chip.
All right, let's bow for prayer first. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. We thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us and that you've given the many blessings you provided us and our families with each day. We are thankful for living in a country where we have freedoms, where we have the opportunity to elect those that are going to govern us. And help us not to take that freedom lightly. There are many in this world that do not have it. And I just pray that each and every one of us would be involved in the electoral process, that we would make the wisest decision we possibly can, and that you would bless the outcomes that we have, Father. We pray that you'll be with us tonight, that we'll show wisdom in everything that we do, and that we'll conduct ourselves in a way that would honor you. Most of all, we thank you for Jesus and for the gift of eternal life, and then just pray that you will continue to bless our country, Father. In your name we pray. Amen. Everybody stand for the start pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time now for the questions and the forum to begin. Thanks again for everyone being here. My name is Joel Williams, 99.3 WCOM, and I appreciate you having me as well. Candidates, nice to have you here tonight. A couple of rules we'll go through. Some of these you may already know, but it is a political forum, not a debate, and our intention is to allow each candidate to put forth their ideas in front of the voting public, not for attacks on other candidates or even a debate format. Therefore, there are no rebuttal times allowed in this format, and we encourage all candidates to take their allotted time to answer the questions put before them at this time tonight. You'll see here that we have a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. Green means go when you start your minute. The yellow caution gives you 15 seconds before it's over. That's at the 45-second mark. And red means stop. All right, and that does mean stops. So everybody, we can stay on time, running a lot of folks through here tonight. And for those of you at home and our candidates, they will be given opening statements for 1 minute. And then, of course, their answer to the questions will be 1 minute, and they have 30 seconds to close here tonight. And we are starting with State House District 10, and these gentlemen are offering their services. Victor Anderson, Robert Crumley, Jimmy Dean, and Nick Mitchell. We'll start in alphabetical order, and Victor Anderson, it will be you for your opening statements.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Victor Anderson, and first of all, I'd like to thank the Farm Bureau and the Habersham Chamber of Commerce for putting on this event. I know none of us, when we decided to throw our hats in for this position, thought we would be in the environment that we're in now, as far as the quarantine and dealing with this pandemic crisis. So I appreciate this opportunity to speak directly to the voters and to talk about issues that are coming up. As we come out of this economic downturn that we've had over the last few months, our state stands in a very good position for a great rebound. The decisions made by Governor Kemp and his staff have really positioned us well. I feel like that we need, from this district, a strong, experienced conservative leader to go down to Atlanta and represent us in making those decisions going forward. Our legislature now is about to wrap up a budget that's going to be extremely stripped of a lot of things, and we need to continue that throughout the next few years to make sure those projects get added back. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Robert Crumley. Robert.
Yes, Farm Bureau, thank you so much for having us this evening. My name is Robert Crumley, runner for state representative for White and Habersham County. Born and raised in White County all my life, graduated from White County High School, worked a few jobs here and there to find my niche, and I fell into the Trump campaign, and I worked with the Trump staff, working all over the nation with endorsed candidates for Congress. And through that, I learned a lot of experience working with state and federal legislators from multiple states. And currently work as sales manager at Classic Muscle Metal, which is a sheet metal company that makes sheet metal for classic cars. And I'm very humbled to have the recommendation of the Georgia Republican Assembly to be able to sit here before tonight as a candidate. But I look forward to answering all your questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Jimmy Dean.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm a conservative Republican. I love my country, I love my state, and I love my Northeast Georgia mountains. When I entered this race, one of the main things I was wanting to concentrate on and work with was making sure my 2-year-old granddaughter could live and thrive in District 10 once she finished her high school education or college or trade school, whatever she decided to do. She's 2 years old now. She don't have much opportunity to work to make sure the future works out for her. That's our job, the voters. It's up to us to make sure that we lay the right foundations to make sure that when she does get through her education here, that she can stay here in Habersham County and in White County and make a decent living. It's up to us. We'll look for your opportunity to do that, work with you to make sure that happens. I appreciate you voting.
And last opening comment, Nick Mitchell.
Hi, my name is Nick Mitchell. I'm chair of the White County Democratic Committee, and the reason that I jumped into this race is I've lived here the majority of my life, and over that time, voters haven't had the kind of choices that they have in other parts of the country. Many voters sit at home because they don't have local candidates that sound like them, that think like them. So I'm here to try to give those voters a voice, give those voters an opportunity to make a choice, those that would like to make it. My campaign is focusing on a couple of things. The biggest issue that I care about is healthcare and Medicaid expansion, something Georgia has neglected to do, and that I hope to push for if selected to go to the General Assembly. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your opening comments. Let's get to the questions now, and we'll start kind of go down and kind of alter how we started here. So Robert Crumley will start the line of questioning here this go around. Our first question: after experiencing the public education curriculum firsthand, many parents feel it is severely lacking and plan to continue to homeschool their children even after schools are reopened. So what changes do you plan, or do you have in your plans, to boost the state's curriculum to improve student achievement in all areas? That would be reading, math, science, history, etc. And again, we'll start with Robert Crumley.
Thank you. First off, we have got to get rid of Common Core. The State House is a Republican majority, and I don't know how the state of Georgia has gotten Common Core in its legislative assembly to begin with. Federal funding, that's why. But anyway, we have got to get rid of Common Core, and I do not blame the parents for homeschooling their kids or putting their kids through charter schools even. And I completely support tax exemptions for homeschool parents and sending your kids to private schools simply because they don't want to have to send their children to the Common Core curriculum. So my number one answer is we have got to get rid of Common Core, and once we get rid of Common Core and make the public education system in Georgia a reputable thing, then we can take away the tax breaks from whoever needs it to take advantage of the system.
And we'll stay on the same question, and next up, Jimmy Dean.
Yes, sir. I agree with Mr. Crumley. I think the Common Core was a terrible mistake based on everybody that I've talked to about that, and I think it needs to be done away with. I support our public schools and our public school teachers. I don't have a bit of problem with private schools, homeschooling, and I think there should be some type of tax opportunity for people that choose to go that route. But I do not support taking funds away from our public schools and our public teachers in order to fund private education.
All right, then we'll go to Nick Mitchell. Same question: what changes to boost the state's curriculum? Your thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Dean. I strongly disagree with any attempts to take funding out of our public school system to funnel to private schools, and I'm going to take the leap and say charter schools as well. I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth. I graduated from Light County High School in 2011, and it was a pretty good experience. We have a lot of really excellent teachers in this state. We're very fortunate in that. But one thing that our state government needs to step up and do is provide better pay for these teachers. Many teachers are worrying about making house payments and car payments and spending less time preparing for their classes as a result. So if we can help the teachers, they'll do a better job.
All right, Victor Anderson.
Okay, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good discussion up here so far, and I agree with just about all of what's been said. We're fortunate in Habersham and White counties to have excellent school systems. They're continually rated towards the top in the state, and we recognize those teachers and administrators that are involved with that. In the state of Georgia in general, right now we have a severe teacher shortage. So that is something that has to be addressed, both on the local and at the state level, which gets back to teachers' pay and other matters there. As far as funding for school systems, I am in agreement with giving parents options. Not every parent wants to or is capable of homeschooling, but not every parent wants their child to go to public school. So there needs to be options, but I also agree that those options do not need to take away from the resources allocated to our local school systems.
All right, here's our first question in the books. We go to second question. House Bill 545 seeks to strengthen and protect farmers from loopholes in our state's right to farm laws. Would you support HB 545? Why or why not? Jimmy Dean, we'll start with you this go around.
Yes, sir, I would. Our farmers are probably the ones that's hurting worse than anyone, or as much as anyone right now, with regard to the current situation we're dealing with the virus and things of that nature. I think anything we can do to help them get through this crisis that we're in right now, we need to do. Should that be passage of additional legislation, should that be additional tax relief, that is the types of things I think we're going to have to look at to make sure they survive this crisis.
All right, Nick Mitchell's up next. Would you support HB 545? Why or why not?
I actually do not know the specifics of that bill, so I'm not going to commit one way or the other, but what I will commit to is support for lessening the strain and difficulties that farmers face. Small business often gets caught in the trap of the regulations that are put on the books in order to rein in big corporate entities, and anything that we can do to mitigate that, I think, is a good thing.
Victor Anderson, HB 545.
I would definitely support helping our farmers to navigate through this. The Right to Farm bill was a good bill, but it also came up a little bit short in some areas, and I would definitely support that. We have to lessen the burden on small businesses and farmers. Farms are a small business. They provide a specific service that we honestly can't live without, and so we need to make sure that is taken care of.
All right, and our final question here as we go into this round, that goes to Robert Crumley.
Yes, sir. House Bill 545, I have not read the specifics of that bill, but so I cannot promise yes or no if I would or would not support it, because I have not read line item by line item of what that entails. But strengthening the position of farmers is one of my #1 priorities. You know, I grew up on a farm. I know what kind of strenuous bureaucracy farmers have to go through, especially the meat industry around here, and produce as well. But there's so many loopholes that the state legislature can take action for to strengthen the position of local farms. Because right now, the federal government's pushing for local farmers to be like chicken houses, being the growers for a corporation, not being a grower for themselves to provide meat for their own community. And so, thank you.
All right, let's go to the next question. Question number 3. Many citizens are concerned with the gas tax increase that was passed during Governor Deal's last term, only to see there be such an excess in funding for the Georgia Department of Transportation that they have that people find seemingly unnecessary projects that have been invoked, such as cutting down trees in our medians. Would you support repealing Governor Deal's gas tax increase? And we start this go around with Nick Mitchell.
That's an excellent question, and thank you. I don't believe I would. I find it hard to believe that we have an excess of funds that can't be used to strengthen our roads. All over the state, our roads are in disrepair, so I don't know why that money hasn't been earmarked to fix that. But until those roads are in a condition in a safe condition, I can't tell you how many times I've been driving down the road and in the rain and not being able to see the paint. There's no excuse for it. So I would not repeal the gas tax at this time until those issues are addressed. But once they are, I would be happy to revisit that issue.
Victor Anderson, would you be in favor of repealing the Deal gas tax increase?
I would definitely be in favor of revisiting that situation. At the time this went into place, I was chairman of the county commission here in Habersham County. We looked over this legislation and the impact on not just our county, but counties across Georgia very closely. When gas is at a certain price level, a higher price level, it's actually a reduction in cost per gallon to the taxpayers. When it's low like it is now, it is an increase. The biggest problem we have with that is the allocation of those funds and how it's coming back to the counties. majority of the road construction and road improvements and maintenance in the state of Georgia are not done by the DOT. They are done by local counties and municipalities and or contractors that the DOT hires. The allocation of those funds has fallen short of what it was originally projected to be, primarily because it got caught up in the bureaucracy. So it definitely needs to be revisited and look back at the original intent with some more input and some more focus on counties.
All right, thank you. Robert Crumley, would you be interested in reviewing that gas tax increase?
I have to agree with Victor Anderson on this one. It does need to be revisited because, you know, gas prices are at the lowest I've ever seen in quite some time, and I believe it should be taxed fairly on or either a flat tax or on a fluctuating market-based tax. However, I do not agree personally, just specifically with the gas tax. That's the only tax plan I believe in with a fluctuating market. I do not agree with taxing the individual. I do agree with taxing commerce, because that's one of the most conservative tax plans. Is a flat tax on commerce, or excuse me, a flat tax on the individual with fluctuating taxes on commerce. And so yes, I do think we should definitely revisit that bill, and I would like to go, like I said, line item by line item to see the specifics of what needs to be changed.
All right, final participant in this go around, Jimmy Dean.
Yes, sir. I have a tendency to say yes, I would want to rebuild it. The DOT, as Victor says, the county does a lot, most of the paving of the roads and taking care of them and such. DOT as a whole, from my experience with working with the legislature in Atlanta, dealing with them, they sort of do what they want to do. And they get direct, basically when you have a tax, that tax goes directly to them. Speaker Murphy used to have a pitch and fit every time something like that would happen with dealing with the DOT, because he couldn't get a lot of the local monies to go out to the rural areas as opposed to some of the urban areas. So, yeah, it needs to be revisited. The local governments, local county commissioners and cities need to have a lot more influence on where they're spending their tax money. And I think that needs to be looked at very, very hard.
Well, while we're on the subject of taxes, let's throw this one out here for you. Will you commit publicly tonight that you will not support any additional tax increases, that's tax increases, whatever that might look like, during your tenure if elected? Victor Anderson.
That's a tough question to answer, because we have a certain level of services that are needed and expected by our citizens. And we're facing a budget situation right now where the General Assembly is having to cut between 14 to 15% out of the budget because of revenue shortfalls, which revenue are taxes. I would definitely be opposed to tax increases in any form. To make a firm commitment that I would oppose any tax increase, I can't really do that at this point. Not because I want to increase taxes, it's just because there are questions, especially coming out of the economic downturn we're in now, that can't be answered at this point. I fully expect our recovery will negate this problem, and we'll be back to the point that we were at the beginning of this General Assembly session, planning another tax decrease on the income tax.
Robert Crump.
No, I will never support tax increases. I'm the only candidate up here that has taken the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. I've sworn my name on it, so I must honor what I've promised to do. I firmly believe that I firmly believe that increasing the budget is not balancing the budget. And just because certain agencies need more money than other agencies, yes, I do firmly believe that we should reallocate those funds instead of giving the burden to our citizens by our reckless spending. So no, I will never increase taxes. Increasing the budget is not balancing the budget. Thank you.
Jimmy Dean, will you commit tonight on tax pledge against tax increases? Where do you stand?
No, I will not commit to that. None of us up here, or really out there, knows exactly what's going to be going on with this coronavirus situation that we've got. I have no intention, I have no desire to ever increase taxes. But at the same time, we've got to take care of our children, we've got to take care of our senior citizens, we've got to take care of our public safety issues. We've got to make sure that everything that the government is required to do has enough funding to actually do. And when I say required, I mean required. There's a lot of difference between wants and have to house. And the have to house, the essentials, I support. And if it takes some tax increase in some different areas, then I would hate to, but I would take that step if I needed to.
Nick Mitchell.
I will not commit tonight. I'm going to echo Mr. Anderson and Mr. Dean. There's no way to know exactly what the future holds. And coming out of this, what is going to be an economic crisis, you never know the steps you're going to have to take. What I will commit to is not raising taxes on lower to lower middle income brackets. But outside of that, everything's on the table.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce ranked Georgia near the bottom, 41st, in its 2019 Lawsuit Climate Survey. We fell from 31st in just 4 years, or the past 4 years. How important is tort reform, and would you go on record as a supporter of tort reform? And this round of questioning, we'll start with Robert Crumley.
Tort reform, if I remember reading it correctly, is the protection of the defendant, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have to refresh my memory, to be honest, on tort reform. I read there's so many articles of legislation revolving around tort reform, it's almost impossible to remember it all. But I will definitely look into this, and I will post my response to this question on my campaign page, but as of yet, I do not have a plausible answer. Thank you.
Mr. Dean?
Yes, sir. It needs to be looked at very seriously. Tort reform, when it comes to people being able to sue over a hot cup of coffee, things need to be looked at carefully. These lawsuits that just basically happen all the time when people slip and fall stuff. Granted, there's reasons, and people need to be protected, and people need to get some resources when something like that happens to make sure they take care of themselves, or can take care of themselves. But lawsuits with doctors, lawsuits with hospitals, that's one. I mean, we've got some issues in Habersham County with our hospital situation. Tort and lawsuits hadn't helped that a bit. With people running scared about doing this, that, and the other. Because they're afraid they'll get sued. And if they get sued, there's no real limits on how much they can be sued for. So anyway, it needs to be looked at. Yes,
all right, Mr. Mitchell, tort reform.
I'm not particularly interested in looking at tort reform. Generally speaking, a lot of these crazy lawsuits are blown way out of proportion. Our legal system is doing just fine, but a lot of clickbait articles bring attention and over-exaggerate a lot of the specifics. I'm always happy to look at anything that's put in front of me. I'm open to having a conversation about some specifics, but as far as sweeping change to tort law, I'm not going to commit to that.
Mr. Anderson.
As a business owner, I see the impact on my business from an insurance cost standpoint, as well as from protection of my employees and customers, of the volume and magnitude of lawsuits that have become a common trend in many cases in many places. As chairman of the hospital authority, I see how it impacts our healthcare system and how it directly impacts all of our lives through health insurance costs too. However, we have to look at both sides. There are certain protections that need to be afforded to victims, true victims, and there are certain limitations that needs to be put on that. I would be in full favor of reviewing the tort system for potential reform, but I think it has to be done with all parties at the table, not just one side. And that's been part of the problem in the past is there's only been one side pushing for reform, and the trial lawyers and the other side of the equation, the victim advocates, have not really been consulted.
All right, now let's go. Try to squeeze in one more question here. Is there room for improvement for state agencies to provide Georgians with better customer service? And how can the General Assembly legislate to make it easier for constituents to do business with state agencies in the university system? And this go around, we will start with Nick Mitchell.
Well, I'm a firm believer that there's always room for improvement, regardless of what you're talking about. The first thing that comes to my mind is to build up our online infrastructure. If this whole situation has not taught us anything, it's that there are certain aspects of our society that need to get with the times and get an online presence. It streamlines a lot of processes. In a lot of instances, it takes less time to get through some of the bureaucracy. So, online.
Victor Anderson.
Not to really parse words a little bit, but the question almost sounds like two questions, because we mentioned state agencies and then the university system. And while the university system is technically a state agency, there is a distinction there. As far as state agencies, I think of agencies like the Department of Driver Services, the Department of Revenue. As a business owner, I deal all the time with the Department of Revenue, and also deal occasionally with the Secretary of State's office for licensing and that sort of thing. I can tell you that the Secretary of State's office, interaction with them is much simpler and much smoother than it is with the Department of Revenue. That would really be some benefit if we could take some of the technology and that sort of thing that was implemented there a few years back and kind of work it in there. As far as the university system, there are definite improvements that could be made there. One of the things that we constantly see is an increase in the cost of college education. I think that streamlining the interaction process would potentially help that.
All right, Mr. Grumling.
It's a tricky situation because talking about improving customer service, that sounds like expansion, government expansion, which leads to tax increases, which I promised not to do. So I would look at it as what I'd have to agree with Mr. Mitchell back there and try to make it a more automated system. Sure, the call center, nobody likes dealing with robots, but you would have to pay more. There's more resources being spent to put a person in a building and have somebody come visit that person for any kind of notary or a fax or anything like that. And it would make it so much more easier if it was a more automated system where you sign your PDF file instead of having to fax it in. This 21st century, nobody has faxes anymore, but to email it in and reallocate the funds available and not have to increase any taxes.
Mr. Dean.
Yes, sir. Well, I agree with all these gentlemen. There's a place in public safety, for example, where in the years when I was dealing with the Public Safety Training Center, one of the biggest things we had to concern ourselves with was the technology, to make sure that we provided proper technology for the people, the sheriff's departments and police departments could actually sign up for courses and things of that nature down there. That was a major thing, was trying to get the curriculum and get the students lined up for the right courses. Technology is going to be the answer in my mind to a lot of the public safety. Of course, I hate answering the phone or calling somebody and getting the little lady saying, hold on a minute, and they play this crazy music. But at the same time, technology, I think, is going to be the answer to making sure that we take care of our public out here.
Well, here we are, closing statements now, and you get 30 seconds on that. We'll go in reverse order of how we did the opening statements, which means we'll start with Nick Mitchell.
Well, thank you for tuning in. My name is Nick Mitchell. My website is going to be launched tomorrow. It's nickforga.com. That's Nick, Forga.com. If you're interested in connecting with the campaign. I look forward to a good, clean race.
Mr. Dean?
Yes, sir. In my opening remarks, I said the future of our children and grandchildren, they're in the hands of the voters. That's the voters, the people out here that's going to select the next representative for the 10th district. You're going to have a lot of candidates that have said a lot of things. They are saying it a lot of different ways. And that is the things that you as a voter is going to have to work toward to make sure you understand exactly what to do. Appreciate you voting.
Robert Crumley.
Yeah, so I don't claim to have the most experience, the most knowledge up here, but I do promise one thing. I will never compromise our integrity, the integrity of our rights, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness to be able to, for funding and endless government expansion. But feel free to check me out at crumleyforgeorgia.com or visit me on Facebook at crumleyforgeorgia, and or send me a friend request. It's just Robert Crumley. But feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks.
Victor Anderson.
As I mentioned in my opening comments, as we come through and navigate through the economic downturn of this crisis we've been in, we need experience. We need experienced representation from District 10. I have the most experience, I have the most training in both business and as a county commissioner. I'm the only candidate in this race who has balanced not only personal and business, but also taxpayer-funded government budgets. I have filed all of my paperwork with the State Ethics Commission in complete form and on time too, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Victor Anderson, Robert Crumley, Jimmy Dean, Nick Mitchell, thank you very much for offering your services. Thanks for being here tonight, and we wish you all good luck with June 9th approaching. Thank you. State Senate District 50, and we have 6 candidates, I guess that is. So everybody here? All right, so we should have everybody here. Thank you very much. So make sure Andy Garrison is, and we'll go alphabetical order. Let me give everybody just a couple of things here before we start with Mr. Garrison, and he will have opening statements here. You get a minute for your opening statements. You'll see the handy dandy timer we have right over here. Green means go. Yellow gives you 15 seconds to finish. That's the 45-second mark. And red means stop. So don't go through that stop sign. All right, very good. 60 seconds for your opening comments, 60 seconds to answer questions we'll have here in a moment, and 30 seconds to close. So we start with Andy Garrison. Andy?
Very good. My name is Andy Garrison, and I'm running for State Senate in District 50. I'm a Christian, conservative Republican, a college professor teaching constitutional law. I'm a small business owner. I've been a public servant and a first responder for over 38 years. I'm retired as director of the State Police Academy there in Athens, where I train many of the public safety people that are on the front lines today, which makes me very proud. I'm pro-life. I'm for the Second Amendment. I support that. I teach that at my college level. And I'm all about small business, and I think small business and our farmers are what's going to bring us out of this recession that we're facing or we're approaching right now. I'm Andy Garrison, and I appreciate your vote on June the 9th.
Thank you, sir. Dan Gazaway.
Good evening, I'm Dan Gassaway. I'm a 1984 graduate of Habersham Central. My wife Shannon graduated in 1985, and she's a teacher in the Habersham County school system. My mother and my mother-in-law taught in the Habersham County school system for decades. My family has been from Habersham County for over 100 years. I represented Habersham County for 6 years in Georgia House of Representatives. In 2018, I mailed to 12,000 Habersham County houses some information where I said the Habersham County taxpayers are in serious trouble on their hospital deal. I went on to say that I felt like there was a deal that was going to basically give away the Habersham Hospital, and it was going to force the taxpayers to absorb the entire debt. Every night we see Donald Trump attacked on TV because he's standing up for the people versus special interests. That's what I did for the Habersham County people in 2018, and I was viciously attacked on multiple fronts, including this very forum 2 years ago. Unfortunately, for the Habersham County taxpayers, what I predicted happened to them in the fall of 2019.
Thank you, Dan. Stacy Hall, opening comment.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate Farm Bureau putting this great event on tonight. Tonight we're all going to say we're pro-Trump, we're pro-life, we're pro-ag, we're pro-education, we're conservative Republicans. Many of us are going to say we're receive the highest rating from the NRA, which I have as well. So what's different? What's unique about each of us? And I would offer this, that I think experience matters. I'm the only candidate with extensive experience in education, business, local government, and rural health care. I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by over 60 local mayors, commissioners, city councilmen, businessmen, and community leaders. I'm the only candidate endorsed by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce because they understand my passion and understanding of business. I'm the only candidate endorsed by Georgia Carry, not because I say I'm pro-Second Amendment, because as a county commissioner, I've actually passed Second Amendment initiatives. I'm the only candidate endorsed by Georgians for Lawsuit Reform because I support curbing frivolous lawsuits that cost many taxpayers a lot of money.
Opening statement, Bo Hatchett.
Thank you for having me. My name is Bo Hatchett. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative Republican, and I would consider it a true honor to be your next state senator. I was raised here in Habersham County, and I'm a product of public education. I went to Habersham Central where I played quarterback. I then went to Georgia Tech and then to University of Georgia for law school. After law school, I came back with my wife, and we're raising our two beautiful daughters here, Hallie and Hazel. Tonight, you're going to hear a lot about what's important to each candidate. And to me, it's important to be a good, honest, reliable state senator. I want to be someone you can rely on and who will personally answer your phone calls. I'm running for this office because I genuinely care about the people of this district. I genuinely care about the future of this district. And in my opinion, what makes this community great is our values, and I will always stand for your values in Atlanta. Thank you.
Opening statement, Tricia Heiss.
First of all, thank you so much to the Georgia Farm Bureau for hosting this wonderful event. My name is Tricia Heiss, and I'm running for State Senate, and I ask for your vote. I was born and raised here in Habersham County. I'm a product of the Habersham County school system, and through that type of education, I grew up through 4-H and through FFA. A big reason why I'm here today is because of my FFA advisor, Mr. Danny Brooks. Mr. Brooks took it upon himself to support me, to ask me to be a part of FFA, and then taught me and planted the seed for public service. And so I want to tell him thank you very much. He's also endorsed me in this race. Being able to farm, being able to produce agriculture, agritourism, and other things is vitally important. I was the first candidate to openly endorse the Right to Farm bill, and I look forward to speaking with you about that tonight. Thank you.
And final opening statement goes to Lee Moore.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Habersham County Farm Bureau for hosting this event tonight, hosting all of us. My name is Lee Moore. Conservative values like faith, family, and commitment to community have guided me as a small businessman as mayor of the city of Franklin Springs. I'm a Christian conservative who's pro-family, pro-life, and pro-gun. And I'm sure our North Georgia values and conservative values have a voice in Atlanta. I'm proud of my proven record at the local level of eliminating debt and improving services, all while cutting taxes. My philosophy is very simple. Less government equals more freedom. As your state senator, I use my experience as a small business and mayor to create more jobs, get North Georgia back moving and going. I'll be a strong advocate for our North Georgia values, and I will stand up to any liberals in Atlanta that want to fight or try to take away our God-given rights. I appreciate your vote support on June 9th. Thank you.
Let's get into some questions here, and tort reform is mentioned in one of the opening statements, so we'll start there. The U.S. Chamber has ranked Georgia near the bottom, 41st, falling about 4 positions in 2019 in the Lawsuit Climate Survey. How important is tort reform, and would you go on record as a supporter of tort reform? And we start this line of questioning with Dan Gazaway.
Yes, I have a record of supporting tort reform measures throughout my tenure in the General Assembly. All these issues are complicated, but tort reform is certainly something we looked at in the early 2000s in the state, and it's definitely time to look at it again.
And we go next to Stacey Hall.
I appreciate the question. I'm glad you asked it. Tort reform, it's more accurately described in my vernacular as a frivolous lawsuit reform. I absolutely support reform in that manner. The average Georgian homeowner is paying $3,631 a year in additional costs of goods and services because of frivolous lawsuits. Between 2011 and 17, insurance, automobile insurance that everybody pays, that's listening and watching today, increased 54% versus 22%, which is the national average. That is directly because of frivolous lawsuits. Now, I'm not talking about taking away the ability for somebody to sue something for negligence or criminal behavior. I absolutely wholeheartedly support that, of course. I'm talking about silly, frivolous lawsuits. That the goal is for folks to settle out of court because it costs less, instead of, if they're innocent and they litigate in the entirety, they very, very well likely win that case, win that lost case, but it's a business decision just to settle out of court. That's wrong, and it needs to be reformed.
Bo Hedges on tort reform.
Yeah, and that's a question I've gotten a lot being an attorney, and tort reform is actually a reform of the tort system. And one thing that I agree that needs to be reformed is frivolous lawsuits. But as a constitutionalist, and if you look at the tort reform bill that was presented this last session, it really treaded on our 7th Amendment right to a trial by jury. Now, I agree, we've got to do something about frivolous lawsuits. It costs the taxpayers, it slows the court systems down. But when you look at the 7th Amendment and your right to a trial by jury, you hear a lot of politicians up here talk about local control. Well, there's no more local control than a jury, and I don't think a big government has any right to tell a jury what they can and they cannot do. But frivolous lawsuits should be done away with, and we need to focus on protecting our constitutional rights.
Same question, Tricia Heiss.
First and foremost, I am a constitutionalist, and that means all of the Constitution, all of the Bill of Rights and the amendments. I firmly believe not only in the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech, but also the Second Amendment, which protects our gun rights, but also the 7th Amendment, which reserves the right by a trial by jury. If your loved one was injured or killed by a DUI, someone who was obviously under the influence of drugs or alcohol, would you want to be limited in your ability to recover? And the answer is no. However, I will say that sometimes there are frivolous lawsuits. I'll give you an example. I had one last week in which the trial court here actually wrote in their order that there was no basis for the motion in the suit that had been filed. I will tell you that I believe in less government, and also because of the insurance costs, we need to look at what type of insurance laws that we have. There used to be a 3% cap on the insurance rate increases, and that changed a number of years ago, which caused our insurance to go through the roof.
And final on this round, Lee Moore, tort reform.
Yes, I'm for tort reform. It's about bringing accountability back to everything. And if we can hold people, businesses accountable, it's going to help us all out. It's going to help small businesses. It's going to help individuals, because what it will do, it will lower our insurance premiums. It will make things a lot less cost effective for us. I am 100% for tort reform.
And then we go to Andy Garrison.
Very good. I am for tort reform. I'm particularly interested in the business that it's keeping away from the state of Georgia. I believe that our pullout in the next couple of years is going to be small businesses and businesses investing in Georgia. Frivolous lawsuits, has been said before, is a hindrance in that way. So I'd be forward to looking at that and working toward that end.
We'll go to a public education question next, and after experiencing public education curriculum firsthand, many parents feel it is severely lacking, and they plan to continue to homeschool their children even after schools are reopened this fall. What changes do you have to boost the state's curriculum to improve student achievement in all areas? And that would be reading, math, science, history, etc. And this line of questioning, we start with Stacey Hall.
Well, thank you for the question. I'm a former educator. I've taught on every level of education: elementary school, middle school, high school. I taught special needs. I was a full-time college business professor, college administrator, so obviously education is something I'm very passionate about. I think I could give a lot more than just a minute, so I'm going to struggle condensing it to a minute. Just real quick, I think we need to allow teachers to be more creative. We've got some absolutely outstanding teachers. We need to allow them to be more creative in the classroom to make it more enticing for students to engage in that process. Number two, I would like to see more vocational training in high schools. I'd like to see more cooperatives with local businesses, more mentorships with local businesses, more businesses helping design some of that curriculum to make it more realistic, more lifelike, but certainly more vocational training is absolutely essential in the public school system. But the big part of it is just allowing teachers to be a lot more creative. I'd like to see less testing, a lot less standardized testing, because what happens a lot of times, teachers are forced to teach toward the test. The red light's on. So I'd love to talk a lot more about that.
Bo Hatchett.
Well, I think one area of education that we need to pour more resources in is to our CTAE programs and our technical schools. You know, one of the issues with economic development is not having a ready workforce, and the high schools and technical schools across the district are in a position where they can take students and train them to be ready to work soon after high school. And the thing with workforce development is having a ready workforce not only helps the people of this district with jobs, it supports the businesses that we have, supplying them with workers that are ready, and it also encourages businesses to relocate here, because one of the things that they look for when deciding whether or not to come into an area is there a workforce that we can work with? And I think pouring more resources into our technical schools is something we need to definitely look at.
Tricia Heiss.
The first thing that needs to happen is that there needs to be less standardized testing. I believe that Governor Brian Kemp has started that on that path and on that journey, and it's a remarkable journey to go down. Second of all, Common Core. The remnants of Common Core remain in our school system and across the state of Georgia, and that's got to go. We've got to allow our teachers to have more control in the classroom, the ability to teach and not to teach a test. That is extremely important, and it's important on all levels, from pre-K all the way through graduation. Technical colleges and technical training is vitally important. College and career academies across the state of Georgia are doing remarkable jobs in order to partner with the high schools and local technical colleges in order to have a ready workforce, and to partner with other businesses in order so that there's a smooth transition with certifications in order to allow college kids to come out of high school making over $40,000 a year based upon that certification.
This question's dealing with state curriculum to improve achievement for our students, and what plans do our candidates have? We continue with Lee Moore.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. I had the honor of teaching public school for 8 years until I started my small business in 2008. My wife is currently a first grade teacher at Royston Elementary, and with almost 20 years of experience. So I know very well, in my opinion, and once again, this is my opinion, but some of the things I feel like need to happen is let the teachers teach. Less meetings, less things that are trying to tell these teachers how to do their job. You have career teachers that know what to do, let them do their job. Let the teachers teach. We're testing the students to death. Cut out the testing, let the students learn instead of worry about teaching the test, so to speak. More career tech, I know Bo touched on that, and I agree with him on that. More career tech academies. Franklin County has one that's doing a great job. Workforce ready. It gets students out into our workforce. It keeps people here, it attracts business, and it grows our economy and brings more business and positive industry into certain areas of our district.
We're back down on the front row again. Andy Garrison.
Very good. Thank you for that question. Number one, I think the COVID-19 has showed us a lot of things, where our strengths were and where our weaknesses were. One of our weaknesses was broadband access. I would be a firm proponent on having that spread out among our districts so we can get our teachers and our students educated. I believe that we'll need an equipment upgrade. We saw that in COVID. We also need business partnership to partner with our schools in order to provide better pathways for our students when they leave the school system. Also, I believe that as an educator myself, that a lot of the policies and rules and regulations that teachers spend less of their time now in the classroom than they should. I'd like to see policy changes that would allow the teachers to actually teach. That's what they want to do. Thank you for that question.
And to wrap up this line on this question, brother, that would be Dan Gassaway.
Thank you. I think that question revolved around public school curriculum, and I don't think the state senator should have any role in public school curriculum. That's something the Department of Education and local school systems should be doing. I do think some of the policies that we implemented while I was in the legislature that are related to education, like Move On with When Ready, are very positive programs, and those are the type of roles that the legislature should be involved in. But the legislature should not be involved in curriculum at all. We need to have a more hands-off approach and quit micromanaging public education in Georgia.
We go to a House bill that is before, that's House Bill 545, and it's seeks to strengthen and protect farmers from loopholes in our state's right to farm laws. If that crossed over to the Senate, would you support HB 545? Why or why not? This round of questioning begins with Bill Hatchett.
House Bill 545 is a bill that's necessary for the agricultural community, and as you touched on, there were loopholes and ambiguous languages in the official code of Georgia that are now going to be closed because of this bill. One thing that I think it does is it allows farmers to not have to stay awake at night wondering if a nuisance lawsuit is going to be filed against them. It shortens the statute of limitation on these farmers, and I think what this bill does is allows government to get out of the way and helps farmers do what farmers do best, which is farm. So I would support this bill if it crossed over.
Tricia Heiss.
Thank you. Yes, I was the first candidate in this race to endorse and support House Bill 545, the right to farm. I grew up in FFA and 4-H. My husband is an agricultural banker. The success of the farmer is not only vital to our community and to our state, it's also vital to our families. And so it does shorten a part of the statute of limitations. It also provides protections for the homeowner. It's not equitable or fair for a existing living farm to be able to be sued, another frivolous lawsuit, by an incoming homeowner. It requires that it be within a 5-mile radius, and for the plaintiff in a lawsuit, the person filing the lawsuit, to actually own the property in order to bring the lawsuit. So yes, absolutely, I support the right to farm bill. I support our farmers. I support agriculture. I work diligently on a daily basis to work with farmers across Senate District 50 as well as the state.
All right, House Bill 545. Lee Moore, how about you?
I 100% support House Bill 545. Agriculture is our #1 industry, and we have to do everything we can to support it. It just goes back to my opening. Less government equals more freedom. Get government out of the way. I know in Franklin County, where I live, where I was born and raised, chickens is everyone's life. I think at one time, Franklin County had more chicken houses than anything east of the Mississippi, any state. So, one small percent might think that smell of chicken litter stench, but to the 99.99% of people, that's money, and that's their livelihood. I 100% support it.
All right, go back down to the front row, and we'll go down from left to right as they face you, Ms. Andy Garrison.
Very good. Thank you again for that question. I definitely support House Bill 545. I'm an old FFA'er, have shown cows and swine and judged cattle during my career, and particularly in high school after I went to school to be a veterinarian. The House Bill 545 clarifies some language that was loose. The first version came over from the House, went over to the Senate. They made some additions to it, clarified some stuff, and they're going back to it. I think it would be something that it came across my desk I would wholeheartedly support it. We have to support this $75 billion business that comes into our state, and that's our agriculture. And this farm bill keeps frivolous lawsuits away. As many of the candidates said today, it will also fine-tune a lot of the things of who can actually sue and who can claim a nuisance. The bottom line, yes, House Bill 545 would be high on my agenda. Thank you.
Dan Gasaway.
Certainly, I support the bill as well as the intent of any bill that protects farmers' rights. I am a farmer. I have owned a poultry farm. I was basically called out for spreading poultry litter on my pasture in Banks County recently, which should be unheard of to any farmer in Northeast Georgia, but it happened. Poultry litter turned Northeast Georgia green. I was here in Habersham County when the Chattahoochee used to run red when it rains, and poultry litter changed all that for Northeast Georgia, and those nutrients are important, and odor is just part of farming. And I think any effort to support and protect our farmers is something we all have to support. Thank you.
Stacey Hall.
Absolutely. As a state senator, one of my legislative priorities will be to support our farmers. I absolutely support House Bill 545, the right to farm bill, just as I support Cuba. It's very important for our farmers. I've had a lot of conversations with many of our farmers and those folks in agribusiness throughout the district during the campaign. And as a state senator, I'm going to have their back. I have made a commitment. I've looked at farmers in their eye to eye, and I've made a commitment to them that I will fight for them. And that's why a lot of local farmers and folks in the agribusiness are supporting my campaign. I've been endorsed by many, many farmers throughout the district. Drew Eccles, Gary Farmer, Cole Roper, just a few of them. And I appreciate their support, and they know that I will have their back as a state senator.
Let's get to taxes in our next question. Many citizens are concerned with the gas tax increase that was passed during Governor Nathan Deal's last term. Only to see that there seems to be such an excess in funding that the GDOT, or Georgia Department of Transportation, that they have to find seemingly unnecessary projects such as cutting down trees and medians, etc. Would you support repealing Governor Deal's gas tax increase? And this go around, we start the questioning with Tricia Heiss.
Yes, Tricia Heiss. Listen, I am 100% for less government, less taxation. I quote Ronald Reagan when I say, let's get the government off the backs of the people. There were a lot of people that, including myself, that were shocked and a little bit surprised by the pass of the transportation bill. I think that at any time when you have an excess of funds that are being collected, we have to look at what we are doing and whether or not we're doing it efficiently. I happen to live off of the 365 corridor where those trees have been cut down, and I will tell you now, I'm looking at the wonderful city of Cornelia, thinking to myself, I didn't realize I lived in such a metropolitan area. However, I also realize that as we go into the reconvening of the state senate and the House, that we have a budget deficit and a shortfall, and budgets are having to be cut by 14%. So my position is that we need to look at what type of funds are available and whether or not those funds can be reapportioned for different uses.
All right, move down. Lee Moore, how about repeal or keep it as it is?
Well, I don't really know enough information about this tax, but to the question in itself, I'm about fair taxes. I'm about cutting taxes and anti-tax, but you know, right now the biggest issue for not only the current legislatures that are coming in session on June the 11th, but those that will start in January 2021 is going to be the budget. And you know, there's going to be a lot of things that need to be cut. And if gas tax is a way to trim that budget, you know, I'm for that. But I need to see the budget as a whole and look at things a lot more, because I can't tell you, you know, I know that we looked at things in Franklin County here recently of a T-SPLOS, and I was not in favor of that because of what it did tax. So, you know, my thing is I would need more information to say whether I am for or against that.
Andy Garrison, your thoughts?
Very good, thank you. Gas tax, like any tax, rubs everybody the wrong way. Particularly when you start seeing the tax that was raised used in ways that you don't think that are appropriate. That's why I believe that I think that we should have a zero-based budget. I believe that we should actually be working on this issue every day. If we have extra monies, we should be able to redivert those and not let them go to frivolous activities. We should actually do it what they're there for. We have a $4 billion deficit coming up this next year. Saying that I'm going to cut away some taxes that are going to bring some revenue would be sort of silly right now. I believe we should find other ways I think there's other ways other than taxes that we can raise money, and we can cut some of our expenses. So at this time, I would say I would not touch it at all.
And Gasaway?
That was one of the best votes ever cast in the General Assembly. That vote moved Georgia forward more than any vote probably in the past 10 years. Was the bill perfect? No, the bill wasn't perfect. What the bill did was created revenue so that we could start catching up on road repairs statewide. Certainly some projects are being done by the DOT, and the legislature has no control to micromanage projects that might seem excessive to citizens. But that vote that I cast on that bill moved Georgia forward. The one thing I hope is that more highway contractors move to Georgia because of that, and it looks like that trend is occurring, and we will get more competitive bidding on paving projects as that revenue stream stays in place. And we will go back to having the best, safest roads in the country. Thank you.
Stacey Hall.
Well, as a conservative Republican, certainly I support low taxes. As chairman of the Habersham County Board of Commissioners, I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able during my tenure to keep property taxes here in Habersham County, some of the lowest in the state, really in the bottom of 10% of the state of Georgia. So I'm proud of that. As far as specifically your question, Joel, repealing Governor Deal's gas tax increase that was included in the transportation bill, the conservative amendment wants to say, yes, sure, that sounds good, lower taxes. But the reality is we're facing a budget, and I'll always be honest and direct with folks, even if it might not be the answer you want. But we're looking at a budget where we're gonna have to cut 14% at minimum. And it would be disingenuous for me right now to say that I'm going to cut revenue when we're looking at cutting expenses 14%. But as far as cutting down the trees, that was an abhorrent use of tax dollars, in my opinion. And that kind of waste, we certainly need to tighten up.
And we'll finish the line of questioning here. Bo Hatchett.
Thank you. You know, some would characterize this as a tax increase. If you read the bill and you look at it, it's a 26-cent tax on gas, a gallon of gas overall, which is a tax increase if gas is low like it is now. But when it gets high enough, it's actually a tax decrease. But what, you know, Governor Deal and Representative Gasaway at the time, Senator Wilkinson, Representative Terry Rogers, the reason they voted for this is because they realized that Georgia is a very prosperous state, and we're taking a toll on our bridges and our roads. And what this bill did was allow funding to go to build those bridges and to build those roads. And it also helped help predict revenue for the following year by having a consistent base on the gas, a gallon of gas, and not just basing it off the sales tax and a certain percentage. So no, I would not repeal this bill. I think it's a very good bill for Georgia.
While we're on the subject of taxes, so let's ask this question. Would you commit publicly tonight that you will not support any additional tax increases, whatever that form may look like, during your tenure if elected? And Lee Moore starts this round of questioning. Lee?
Yes, I will commit that tonight.
Then we go back down to Andy Garrison.
I think there's no way that I can sit right here and tell you that I would not vote for any taxes. I will definitely tell you that I'm a conservative Republican, and I think raising taxes would be atrocious if we can do it other ways. But let's just be honest with each other, and I appreciate all the honesty that's been on this board today, is that their government runs by taxes. I am not an advocate for frivolous tax. I'm not an advocate for taxes that are going to be used where they shouldn't be. But we're going to have to raise money, and we're going to have to cut expenses to get through this budget. We have a constitutional mandate that we have to balance our budget. So to say that I would never vote to raise taxes, I'm afraid I would have to say I couldn't say that.
Dan Gasaway.
I'm not going to say never. We have serious financial problems confronting the people of our state. We don't really know where this is going to go. I've always been resistant to raising taxes. I have a record. We talked about the transportation bill in the last question. Larry O'Neill and I were the only two representatives, Majority Leader O'Neill and I, who voted no on the first bill because we wanted to see the taxes reduced. The Speaker was upset with me because I did that, but I thought it was too much money to give the DOT in the first round. Two of us pushed, reduced the size of the bill, but nobody, based on the circumstances we're in here now, can responsibly say what's going to happen, because we're in unprecedented economic times, and our teachers are probably looking at a 20% pay cut. And my wife's a teacher. I don't want to see that happen to anybody. And it's something we have to be cautious about, but we also have to look for where we can reduce spending. Thank you.
Stacey Hall.
Well, you know, again, as a conservative Republican, I believe in low taxes, but I think it would be, I'm just going to be honest, I think it would be pandering to people for votes, saying that I will never, ever support a tax increase. Now, yes, I will work my tail off, as my record shows, to keep taxes as low as possible. I see the sheriff back there. We've had a 58% turnover within the last 2 years of our jail personnel. We had to, and we had a lot of other turnovers issues as well. We had to have a 3% increase in our millage rate in order to pay our sheriff deputies, our jailers, and our firemen a little more, not to get to market, but just pay them a little bit more to try to curb some of that turnover. And if your house catches on fire, with all due respect to 18-year-olds, you don't want just 18-year-olds coming to put out the fire. You want a little bit of experience. Experience costs money. Again, I think it's irresponsible, with all due respect, to say that I would never, ever pass, look at a tax increase, but I will fight against it as much as I can.
Bo Hatchett.
You know, I don't think in good conscience I can say I would never vote against a tax increase similar to the bill we spoke of previously. You know, there are times when, and especially now with the economic circumstances that we're in, where there may be a chance that you know, tax increases have to happen. But what I will say is that before I ever vote on a tax increase, we're going to make sure all the fat's trimmed in the budget. We're going to make sure that it is a fiscally conservative thing to do. And I would always fight to make sure that the constituents of this district and the people that elect me are well represented and taken care of, and that starts with making sure that taxes are not raised irresponsibly. But I'll always fight to lower taxes, I can promise you that.
Tricia Heiss.
Thank you. Let's get real. We're under a complete budget crisis. We're in an economic crisis, and we look at each other, and no one in their right mind could have ever expected that this would have happened. Will I fight tax increases? Absolutely. That is my word. I promise you that I will look at every single element and every way possible not to increase taxes. I also understand that there is politics down in Atlanta, okay? And part of the reason why we have a problem with the transportation bill is because things were added to it at the very last minute. If you have ever stayed in a hotel or a motel across the state of Georgia since the tax bill was increased or passed, you had to pay $5. That was a big controversy. So the bottom line is this. It is my promise to you that I will do everything within my power to cut the red tape, to put politics aside, to put my district first, to put you as the people first, and I will vote against that as long as there's pork being added to the table.
Well, we come to closing statements. Boy, this has kind of gone by kind of fast, and so we're going to start reverse order from the opening statements, and that means Lee Moore gets to start us off.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank the Habersham Farm Bureau for hosting us tonight. I thought it was a great event. Even though we didn't have anybody out in the audience, I had a good time talking with folks here that are running out in the lobby. But I'd just like to thank everyone. I would like to just say once again, my name is Lee Moore. I appreciate your vote on June the 9th for Senate District 50. Thank you.
Tricia Heiss.
Yes, I'm Trisha Heiss. I'm running for Senate District 50. I'm a Republican, conservative, Christian, and I'm asking for your vote. I'm a wife, a mother, a small business owner. I'm a Habersham County native and a North Georgia soul. I work every single day to try to make this place a better and most wonderful place to live, work, worship, and play. And I'm asking for your vote. You can call me or text me at 706-499-8495. I will always be accessible to the people, and I invite you to contact me. Thank you.
Vote action.
Thanks to Farm Bureau, and thanks to everyone that's tuned in. One of my biggest goals as your next senator is to be accessible and reachable. You can call me directly at 706-499-6941. Give me about 15 minutes, I'll be in the truck, and you can give me a call. But lastly, I want to say thank you to my wife, Ashley. Running for public office is hard on candidates, and it's even harder on their spouses, so I want to thank her and thank the other candidate spouses in the race. I'm sure you're ready for June 9th to get here too.
Stacey Hall.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Stacey Hall, and I asked for your vote for state senator on June 9th. As a state senator, I think experience matters. I do believe I'm the most qualified candidate. I ask you to learn more about me on my website at vote-staceyhall.com, or certainly on my Facebook page at Vote Stacey Hall. Politically, my views are real simple. I believe in the Bible and the Constitution. I don't think we need to make it more complicated than that. And that shapes everything I do. I ask for your vote, Stacey Hall.
Dan Gasaway.
I'm Dan Gasaway. We're in Habersham County tonight, and I'll tell you, I'm the only candidate in this race that has the personal strength, the political skills, and the legislative experience to help dig the Habersham County taxpayers out of this disastrous hospital deal that they've been roped into. That is the most important issue in any county in Northeast Georgia. Because we're in Habersham County tonight, that's what I'm telling you. I am the candidate that can fix this problem for the Habersham County people.
Andy Garrison.
Again, thank you, Farm Bureau, for allowing us to do this, and thank my fellow candidates. It's been a good race. In closing, I'd like to say that I've taken an oath as a police officer to defend the Constitution, not only the state of Georgia, but the U.S. Constitution, and I will continue to do that to the best of my ability. I'll do that because I'm a conservative Christian Republican. I'm married to Hilda with 4 children and 4 wonderful grandchildren, and I will make a better life for them and you if elected state senator. My name is Andy Garrison. Please call me at 706-369-1830.
Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. Good luck as June 9th quickly approaches, and you're here with our forum tonight. And so we'll let them introduce themselves. Let me just give a couple of rules here. Well, people at home have heard this for a while, but there is a timer here. You see, green light you go. The caution lights, you have 15 seconds to finish, so that's at the 45-second mark of your 1 minute, and then the stop means stop. All right, and you'll have 1 minute for opening comments, and then you have 30 seconds for closing comments at the end of this, as we try to keep everything in line here. So I want to start with Michael Bogus, and he will introduce himself and opening comments, and we'll go through with these four, and then for you to come in the second round. Michael.
Okay. Yes, my name's Michael Bogus. I'm a patriot, not a politician. I'm coming in as a patriot. I'm not here for political party at all. I have been standing for our constitutional rights for the last 17 years, going to Washington, delivering redress of grievances, going to Lobby Day, standing with 40,000 armed patriots in Virginia. It's all about the Constitution with me. And like I said, I carry it every day with me.
All right, thank you very much. Next we go to Andrew Clyde.
I'm Andrew Clyde. My wife Jennifer and I, we live in Jackson County. We're active members of Prince Avenue Baptist Church, where I have served as a deacon. After graduating college, I was commissioned a U.S. Navy officer and served 28 years, both active and reserve. After completing my active military service, I settled down in Jackson County and earned a master's degree in business from the University of Georgia. In 1991, I started a firearms business called Clyde Armory, and it has grown into a nationwide company with 2 locations here in Georgia, so I will not give an inch on the Second Amendment. As a small business owner, I was doing well when, without warning, the Obama IRS wrongfully confiscated $940,000 from my firearms business through an unconstitutional process known as civil asset forfeiture. I then beat them in the court, and I beat them through the legislature of Congress. If elected, I will stand with our president to protect our innocent unborn, defend our gun rights, build the wall, and help the president drain the swamp.
Matt Gertler is next.
Thanks for having me. I'm Matt Gertler from Raven County. I'm a home builder. I've been building homes all my life up in Raven County. I'm also a state representative for House District 8 for the last 4 years. I'm a father. I'm also a husband to my beautiful wife, Marissa, and we have a child who's 10 months old, Olivia. I'm a Christian. I'm one of 5 children. I'm running for Congress because I believe in the ideas that founded this country, these limited government conservative ideas that so many men and women died to protect and defend. My time as state rep, I've never voted for a tax increase, and I've earned the title of Georgia's most conservative representative. We need proven conservatives in D.C. to fight the crazy Democrats, but also the rhino Republicans who keep selling us out year after year. I lead by example, and that's exactly what I'll do as a congressman. I hope to earn your vote on June 9th.
And Brooke Siskin.
Hi, my name is Brooke Siskin. I am a 28-year resident of Georgia. Having just moved to the 9th district, I'm a small business owner. I've been in 2 businesses. I am a single mom to a 22-year-old daughter. I have been involved in politics from 2008, in which I helped former veterans run for Congress. And I did run myself as a state representative in 2008 and got very close. I want to represent in Congress the women and single moms and small business owners and people with disabilities like myself, help them get a leg up and make sure that they have a representation and a voice in Washington. Thank you.
Before we get to our line of questioning, I want to give one other little reminder here to all our candidates. This is a political forum, not a debate. So we're going to kind of keep it that everybody gets the same question. And so we're looking for your ideas tonight, your ideology, so to speak. And there will be other, hopefully, debates that you can do that on a real debate stage. But this is more of a forum stage tonight, so we appreciate that as we go. All right, here we go. First question. With the COVID-19 pandemic, many parents had their first hands-on experience with public education and the curriculum, okay? And they experienced a plethora of frustration. Should the federal government provide more emphasis on education, curriculum, and funding, or relinquish more control back to the states? If elected, what would you do to ensure the 9th District children have the best educational opportunities? And we start this go-around with Andrew Clyde.
Thank you. I believe the federal government should stay out of local education. I think the Department of Education at the federal level is not part of the Constitution. I think it's unconstitutional. I think that local people have the best ideas, and they know how to teach their children. So I think education needs to stay at the local level, so at the state level.
Matt Gertler.
Yeah, as your next congressman, we need to get rid of the Department of Education. I think that education is best left up to the local localities. You know, it's in the 10th Amendment, you know, all those rights not specifically specified in the federal Constitution are reserved to the states and its people. You look at COVID-19, we have three things going on, certainly a health crisis and an economic crisis, and really the proper role of government. And so you've seen a lot of these leftist states really infringing upon people's rights and liberties. Of course, we have an economic crisis, think we need to get back to work. But having school choice and having voucher systems as well is something I've supported as a state rep. Homeschooling as well. I was actually homeschooled my whole life, you know, to my grade school. And so having the choice and the freedom to put your tax dollars where you want to put them is something I've always supported as a state rep.
And we go next to Brooke Siskin.
Okay, I feel that we definitely need to have our education system funded because we have kids that can't afford to go to schools or private schools. So I think we should have some involvement there. And I believe that the best education is an education in which the parents and the school system, it all participates as one, and that we give opportunities to these children who need it, and they have that opportunities and those rights.
Michael Bogus.
Yes, like Matt said, I believe that the Board of Education should be abolished. And I think that it should go to the parents, not the state, not the federal. It's the parents. They're not sitting here making babies for a factory. Everything should go back to the parents' choice. Nothing to do with state or federal.
All right, we'll move to our next question. The Administrative Procedure Act, which governs how regulations are set forth, has not changed substantially in 72 years, or the 72 years it's been on the books. Regulatory policies today are increasingly determined through the courts. While the Trump administration has eased some regulatory rules, how can Congress provide vigorous congressional oversight when it comes to providing regulatory reform? Matt Gerber starts this line of questioning.
I appreciate the question. You know, we've seen this a lot happen with the COVID-19 crisis where these regulations have been lifted. And I've talked to many business owners, and they love that the regulations have been lifted, and they want to stay that way. You know, to have a real true reform of regulations, you know, if you just look at, for instance, the tax code, we have 44,000 something pages on the tax codes, and not to mention the regulations that's going on. You know, government's just too big in general. As a state representative, or having earned the title as Georgia's most conservative representative, you know, you always have to vote in line with Republican principles and limited government that way. And so when it comes to the federal issues, you know, the federal government is too massive, too intrusive. Everybody knows this. The people are fed up with it. They want to bring principles back into politics. And that's something that I've always stood on and will continue to do as a limited government conservative Republican.
Thank you. We go next to Brooke Siskin.
Well, I feel that we should have some regulatory things on our as far as our businesses and all that. They should not be regulatory. I feel that we should have a limited government as well, but a one that works efficiently and effectively. So I believe that we need to work together on trying to find ways to find a common ground on both sides of the aisle to limit the government and make sure that it works efficiently and effectively.
Uncle Bogus.
With that, I mean, you're talking about their lifting regulations during COVID-19. If they can lift them during a pandemic, I mean, they can lift them at any point in time. I think there's going to need to be less regulations all the way around. And the reason why both sides of the aisle won't work together is because both sides of the aisle won't talk to one another. That's the problem in Washington right now, and that's why I'm running.
Andrew Clyde.
Thank you. I think President Trump was right on when one of the first things he did in his administration was to declare that for every new regulation, we have to eliminate 2 existing regulations. So if we can eliminate regulations because of the pandemic, then we can certainly maintain the elimination of those regulations. The federal government is much too large. I believe in limited government as a limited government conservative. I do not believe in legislating from the bench, from the courtroom. I think the legislators need to take that on and reduce regulation that way and not make it happen through the court.
All right, very good. Now let's go to our next question. How would you lead in providing an immigration reform package for our country? What should that legislation look like? Brooke Siskin gets to start this round.
Well, I have a theory on this. I think that we need to have a pathway to citizenship, and that we need to give all of our immigrants coming to this country and people want to become American citizens a way to get towards that pathway to citizenship. I don't believe that we should build a wall, though, to keep out the people that they feel as though are not wanting to be citizens. I don't believe that that's what our taxpayer dollars need to be funded towards that. However, I do believe that we need to work on trying to make sure that people who come to this country become American citizens of this country.
Michael Bogus, immigration reform.
Well, with immigration, I mean, you're looking at 10 to 25,000 per illegal immigrant. That's $100 to $250 million a year that we don't see none of the money. Why isn't that used towards the wall or used towards helping immigrants become citizens? It's not being used. So, like I said, we got too much government, and as far as the wall, we need that for security to keep said people out as far as drug runners, child traffickers, and yeah. So with legislation, it should be using the money that they pay for citizenship to help future immigrants.
Andrew Clyde?
Immigration is very important to me. My mother's an immigrant. She came here legally, and I think everyone needs to come here legally. I think that we should build a wall on the southern border. I fully support President Trump in that. It should be all the way across the border and high enough so that it prevents 100% of illegal immigration. If people are here illegally, they should be sent back to their country of origin to apply legally. I don't believe there should be any exception for illegal immigration. That's wrong. You know, you come here illegally and you expect to be granted some sort of pathway to citizenship? No, absolutely not. We have this country is so exceptional because we have laws and we follow laws. And if we allow people to get in here that don't, then that's the wrong recipe.
All right, then we go to Mr. Gerber.
Thank you. You know, the rule of law is ultimately what we're talking about here. It's the principle of the matter. You know, I agree with Trump about building the wall. We must have strong border security, but there's also other things at play. The welfare state. It's a massive welfare state. We have to defund these sanctuary cities, and only American citizens should be allowed to vote. You know, we have a great country. It's really the shining example we put out to the world, that beacon on the hill. But we have to have a process that people respect. And you know, I think that overall, though, having strong border security, you have to have. There's two parts to it. You have to get rid of the welfare state. It's too massive. It's intrusive. It's being taken advantage of all the time, and this goes along with big government. So always have to be fighting against big government, and that's one of the things I'll do as a congressman.
All right. Next question, and this is really right down to everybody's wheelhouse. Give examples of your experiences in balancing and operating within a budget. And we'll start first with Michael Bogus.
Well, I mean, I have to have a budget to live, so, you know, as far as balancing a budget, I do it every week, every Friday, after Uncle Sam gets done with it.
And we go next to Andrew Clyde.
With regard to experience in balancing a budget, I am a 30-year gun store owner. We have 25 employees. I have signed thousands upon thousands of paychecks, so I fully understand what it means to have accounts receivables and accounts payables and to stay in balance, to absolutely have enough money to pay all your employees, to run a profitable business. We have a very good business with 2 locations here in Georgia. We're a nationwide company now, and it grew from a hobby in my garage. So I fully understand the ability to make money and to keep money in the bank and to balance a budget and to be profitable and successful. And I would bring those skills to Congress as your congressman in the 9th District.
Matt Gerber.
Thank you. Of course, we have to live within our own means. This is pretty much common sense. You know, as a state representative the last 4 years, I'm the only representative to constantly vote against the budgets in the State House as well as speak against them because we have a broken budget, broken budget process in State House. It's much like Washington, D.C., everything is clumped into one bill. It's an omnibus-style budget bill. It's not right. We saddle about $1 to $1.5 billion to Georgians every single year. We had hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidies through these budgets. I've consistently opposed those budgets and voted against them and spoke out against them. And it's the same thing type of leadership I'll bring up to DC when it comes to this unsustainable debt that we have in Washington DC. We're up past 23 trillion now. Look at the stimulus package we just passed. We're going to pass a few more. It's unsustainable. It's not correct in line with proper role of government. And so I have a proven record of fighting against those type of big government bills.
Okay, so I had to balance a budget with the two businesses I had and definitely streamline it, as well as running my own personal house, being a single mother and having to budget every day with what my daughter needed or what I needed to survive. I definitely balanced a budget, of course on the small scale, but however I budget. And so I know that in bringing this to Congress, I know what the bare bones of what needs to be done and what needs to be balanced on a level that I feel it would be great for our country and for our district.
Next question, several states' right to farm laws are under attack. Should there be legislation on a national level to protect our nation's agricultural industry and family farmers? We start with Andrew Clyde. Let's go around.
I think the federal government needs to stay out of the farming industry as much as possible. I think there's too much regulation in the federal government. I think farmers should be able to produce as much as they possibly can from the land that they have. I think they need to be the ones in control and in charge of what they produce. They need to be able to produce the most profitable thing that the farmer thinks is right for them. So I think the farmer needs to be able to set that and not some control at a federal level. Thank you.
Matt Gertler?
Yeah, I'm on the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee for the last 4 years in the state capitol. So I've had a lot of experience with this, but only talking to constituents and voters. You know, the farmers just want to farm. They don't want handouts from the government. I was just talking to a farmer the other day just about the same subject. The few pieces of legislation that I'm supporting, the PRIME Act, the COOL Act, and really the country of origin. This will help our farmers and really, getting the government off their backs is the ultimate goal here, right? And we can't continue to subsidize any more businesses. Really, we need a free market, and we need to put American values and principles first, like Trump's been saying all along.
Brooke Siskin.
Well, I feel that we need to actually give help to our farmers. And so if the federal government does need to get involved, and yes, they need to. But most likely in this district of the 9th district, which is a lot of farm-based jobs, I feel like there's more that we can do to benefit the farmers here. So I want to be able to give back and write a bill that would help out the farmers, just particularly in this district, so that they can have funding for their farmers in this area.
Michael Bogus?
Like everybody else, there's way too much government involved. I believe that there should be legislation to take government away from farmers and only protect the farmers when needed, such as disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes like South Georgia when that happened, floods here. I believe that we should be able to help our farmers because they're the ones who's actually feeding us. Our country should be self-sustained anyway without all the federal regulations that's involved in the farming industry.
Final question, will you commit publicly tonight that you will not support any additional tax increases, whatever that may look like, during your tenure if elected? And Matt Gertler, we start with you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would not support any new tax increases. I have never voted for a tax increase as 4 years as a state representative. That's what really sets our campaign apart here, that I have the proven record to back it up. There's one thing to say things and have lip service to what you're going to do. There's another thing to actually act on that. And that's where it sets our campaign apart, that proven record. I have never voted for a tax increase. I never will. Government is way too big and intrusive. It was a campaign promise I made in 2016 when I ran for state rep. I kept that promise. And I think I'm the only representative both in the House and the Senate that actually kept that promise. So it's really a novel idea. My constituents tell me that a politician will actually do what he said he's going to do and keep his word. So I can promise you I'll never vote for a tax increase ever.
Brooke Siskin.
Right now, I can say that I would not vote for a tax increase. I don't know what the bills that would come down the pipe, but I would not vote to increase someone's taxes. I believe we do have to pay too much in taxes right now. So I am not what people consider tax and spend liberal. I would definitely be, conservative when it comes to paying people's taxes and not adding any more to their budget.
Michael?
Damn right, I ain't voting for no tax increase. I mean, I get raped every Friday. So, no, I will not vote in favor of tax.
Andrew Clyde?
I will not support any new tax increases. In fact, a reduction of an increase is not a decrease. I would vote for decreasing taxes. The federal government grows and grows and grows because it increases exponentially in the money that it brings in. The way you cut federal government is you cut its resources, and you cut tax increases, you cut taxes, and you cut the money that goes to the federal government, and that will reduce the size of the federal government. So that is that would be my focus. I will absolutely commit to the 9th District. I will not vote for a tax increase.
Closing comments, 30 seconds. We'll go reverse order when we started. Brooke Siskin will begin our closing comments. Brooke.
Thank you for having me to this forum tonight. I believe that as a person that has come to this district to look for opportunity, I want to give opportunity to those in the 9th District. I'm a single mom, like I said, with a disability, looking to help all of our constituents in the 9th District with both having affordable jobs, housing, and having a chance to get opportunities to health care. If you elect me, I will definitely try to fight for those things for others, and I look forward to being your representative in Congress. Thank you.
Matt Gerber.
Thank you so much. I'm the proven conservative in the race. This is what we're running on. I'm hardworking. I'm a home builder by trade, and I'm principled. That is what is really lacking in politics now, principles. I will never trade a value for a vote or a vote for a value. I never have. I have never voted for a tax increase, and I never will. We need limited government conservative Republicans to actually do what they say they're going to do. And that's why I earned the most conservative legislator, the title of most conservative legislator in the state by the Georgia Republican Assembly. And I thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity. I hope to earn your vote on June 9th. Vote for Matt Gerber.
Andrew Clyde.
I'm Andrew Clyde, an evangelical Christian, a 3 combat tour war veteran, a small business owner, and the only candidate in this election endorsed by Freedom Caucus member Congressman Jody Heiss. We need people in Washington who know how to both fight and win, who will protect our innocent unborn, defend our gun rights, build the wall, stand for our president, and end overreaching unconstitutional government. Please go to ClydeForCongress.com to see my Fox News interview in my fight against big government. Ask for your prayers and your vote. Soli Deo Gloria.
And Michael Bogus.
Yes, I'm Michael Bogus. Go to BogusForCongress.com. Check me out. You might catch me on Facebook if Antifa's not taking my page down, but I believe that people should not be paying taxes if they don't agree with the government. So go to HR, file exempt, and quit paying taxes. Like I said, I'm just me. I'm not a politician. As far as I'm concerned, they can all kiss my ass.
Those are our candidates in our first round here for the 9th District, so we thank you all for offering your service, for being here tonight. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Yes, we're ready to get started here with our second for our 9th District Congressional seat. We'll introduce here in a few moments. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. We'll see the timer here. Green, go. Yellow is 15 seconds to wrap, and then the red is stop. You get a minute to open. With opening comments, you get a minute to answer your questions and 30 seconds to close. Kevin Tanner, Ethan Underwood, and John K. Wilkinson with us here tonight. So we'll start in alphabetical order, and that will be Kevin Tanner with opening comments. Kevin?
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's always great to be with the Farm Bureau. My family's been a member of the Georgia Farm Bureau for over 55 years. I'm a Christian, a farmer, a small businessman, a proven conservative fighter. My North Georgia roots run deep. I farm the same land we farmed for over 160 years, attend the same church we've attended for over 7 generations. I've been married to my wife Stacy for 22 years, and we have 4 beautiful daughters. Our oldest daughter Jennifer we took in from foster care, and she's given us 2 beautiful grandsons. I am running for Congress because we need an effective conservative fighter in Congress that will join President Trump to take on no clue Nancy Pelosi and restore common sense to Washington, D.C. That is why my campaign is being supported by folks from all across the 9th Congressional District, not special interests out of Washington, D.C. I have solved big problems, big challenges in business while serving as a county manager and in the State House. I'm ready to do the same in Washington. I look forward to your vote.
Ethan Underwood.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Underwood. I'm a Christian, a father of 4, a husband, but I'm also an attorney who represents people when they go up against the government. My skill set has been working with folks on property rights issues, land use, condemnations, tax appeals, and my job is to make sure that the government doesn't run roughshod over the people it's supposed to represent. I'm good at navigating government systems. I'm good at working in hostile situations to help negotiate settlements, and I'm good at fighting when I need to. I've got no illusions of what I'm asking. I'm asking you to send me into a hyper-political Washington, D.C. and be effective. And my career has prepared me for this. I'm going to go to D.C. with your help, with your vote, to be a source and a resource for President Trump to continue the fight. He needs a battle-ready conservative fighter to stand with him and fight the Democrats. I would be honored to have your vote. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
And John Wilkinson.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be with you tonight. They say if you want to know how a person's going to perform in the future, you can look at what he's done in the past. Well, I'm very happy to be with this group tonight. I've been a Farm Bureau member myself personally for the past 29 consecutive years. I've been married to my wife Debbie for 45 years. We have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. If you want to know how I feel about Farm Bureau and whether I'm supportive of Farm Bureau, as most of you know, I've chaired the Senate Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee for the past 8 years. I've attended many Farm Bureau activities. I've been one of the few legislators that have taken time to go to Jekyll Island and be with you on a regular basis, meet with your members and see what your concerns are, what your issues. I've met with your policy committee and I know that they all look at different aspects of our government, so it's great to be with you at Farm Bureau. I know you can't endorse a candidate, but I want you to know that I endorse your organization.
We'll start with our round of questioning now. The first one deals with the COVID-19 pandemic in a way, because many parents had their first hands-on experience with the public education curriculum and experienced some frustrations with that. Should the federal government provide more emphasis on education curriculum and funding or relinquish more control back to the states? If elected, what would you do to ensure the 9th District children have the best educational opportunities? And Ethan Underwood starts this round.
Sure. I'll start by saying that the federal government should not be involved with our children's education system. At most, they should be providing block grants to help states that have poor populations. But we do not need curricula coming out of California, coming out of Washington, D.C., telling people of Georgia what our children need to learn. That is constitutionally restricted under the 10th Amendment to the states. And of course, local control, parents, we know better what our children need from an educational standpoint. We have learned with the COVID-19 crisis, though, that we also need to be expanding broadband in Northeast Georgia. We've trapped people in their homes and said, educate your children, teach, do your work, yet, by the way, you may not have internet access, and you also may not, if you do have access, there's not enough capacity to handle it. So we've learned that we need to expand our infrastructure here to help education, but that needs to be all handled at a Georgia level.
John Wilkinson.
I believe we need to get the federal government out of education. Of course, we didn't have a Department of Education until the late 70s. And if you go back to the 60s and look at the history of the federal government in education, the federal government provided a little money for our lunchroom program in the 60s, and that's all. It's pretty obvious that the more they become involved, the worse the results have been. I just feel like the people on the state level and then on the local level have a lot better handle on what the students need to learn and what their interests are than the federal government. And any time you send money to Washington, D.C., whatever you send it up there for, they take their part and then it comes back to the state and you lose some there. The more steps that you go through, the less money that you have. We need to keep it as close to home as we can, and we need to give our state government and our local governments the opportunity to utilize those resources the best way they see fit.
Kevin Tanner.
I appreciate the question. First of all, I agree. Federal government has no role in the education. Federal government, Department of Education needs to be done away with. My wife's a teacher. She teaches kindergarten. She teaches for the Georgia Cyber Academy. One size doesn't fit all. We need to have educational choice. We need to give parents an opportunity to make that choice that's best for their family. Not everything's the same for each family. I've been on the education committee since I got in the Georgia House 8 years ago. I passed meaningful education legislation numerous times, including legislation that's had a direct impact on low-performing schools. Worked very closely with Governor Dill on that. That legislation has worked. Those schools are continuing to perform better, and I have a proven track record of success in that area. But again, get the federal government out of education. Georgia has a constitutional mandate to provide an adequate education. Federal government has no role in that at all.
Second question for us tonight, the Administrative Procedure Act, which governs how regulations are set forth, has not changed substantially in its 72-year history. Regulatory policies today are increasingly determined through the courts. And while the Trump administration has eased some regulatory rules, how can Congress provide vigorous congressional oversight when it comes to providing regulatory reform? And we start with Mr. Wilkinson on this round of questions.
Well, first of all, I really believe that's a legislative responsibility to make those types of decisions. It should be decided with legislation. I have a feeling that one of the pieces of legislation that we're going to talk about later tonight is House Bill 545, the Right to Farm Act, that is in our General Assembly. One of the reasons for that bill, even though we are already a right to farm state, is the fact that the courts in many decisions, because the legislation is not written specific enough, the Georgia judges have been taking a wide interpretation and interpreting to fit their feeling what it should be. We need to, as legislators, write the legislation in a manner that does not have to be interpreted by the judges. And of course, another step is we need to have judges appointed. I think we've done a good job of this in Georgia recently, and we need judges appointed on the federal level. And President Trump, I've served on his advisory committee for agriculture in rural America, but we need judges that won't try to write the laws for us.
Kevin Tanner.
Well, I appreciate the question. That's a good question, because the reality is the problem in Washington has a lot to do with the bureaucrats in Washington that are writing the regulations, not just the folks who are elected. As an elected congressman, what we can do is we can take that power back, and we can create legislation that if a regulatory act is going to affect over a certain number of people or cost a certain amount of dollars, have a certain effect, then it has to receive approval from the appropriate committee in Congress or from Congress prior to it being enacted. Currently, they're able to write the regulation. Congress is then able to take that back. It should be the reverse of that. The non-elected bureaucrats that serve for a lifetime in Washington have too much authority, and that authority has been undermined from the elected folks that are sent there to serve us.
Ethan Underwood.
You know, it's a great question, because as an attorney who represents people against the government, this is one of the things I spend most of my time doing, is fighting unnecessary regulations and having to go find out how a judge would interpret the law rather than what the law ought to say. Congress in general has abdicated its responsibility to write laws to secretaries, to departments, and it's inappropriate. This Constitution states that the Congress is vested with the power to write legislation, and that's what we need to take that. I will commit to be a congressman who works on that rather than advocating it to bureaucrats. The simple answer is we can repeal regulations. We can repeal unnecessary regulations, much as the Trump administration has recommended. In fact, they've stated a policy that they would not pass a new regulation without repealing two others. I will support that, and I hope my legacy when I finish my congressional tour is I was known as the congressman who repealed regulation.
Let's go to our next question. How would you lead in providing an immigration reform package for our country? What would that legislation look like? Kevin Tanner starts this round of questions.
Well, first of all, it's a lot like if you have your arm severed and cut off. You have to stop the bleeding, first of all. And that's what we have in this country. We're bleeding at the border. We're not sure who's coming into our country. It's a national security issue. First thing I do is support President Trump in controlling our border, building the border wall, getting our border under control. As someone who's a poultry farmer and has 100,000 broilers, I understand the importance of a workforce. So we're going to have to continue to enhance the H-2A program that allows workers to come in from other countries, documented workers, stay here, work, and then go back home and then come back the following year if they desire to do that. But The first thing, it's hard to have a serious immigration conversation until we control the border. I fully support President Trump's effort in doing that, and if I'm elected to Congress, that'll be one of my top priorities.
Ethan Underwood.
Immigration is honestly a simple fix if we could get Congress to admit what the purpose of it is. For Republicans, we want to know who is in our country. It is a national security issue and is a national health issue to know what non-citizens are in our country. But the truth of the matter is, the Democrats are looking at it as potential voters. And we have to go into that environment understanding that that's what they're fighting us on. We now have the opportunity with this COVID-19 crisis to have an adult discussion about knowing who's in our country because of public health and because of national security. Now, as stated, we need to expand the H-2A and the H-2B programs. We need workers to come in to work in the agricultural business. We need people to come in and work in the technology sector from other countries, so long as it does not suppress wages of Americans who want to work in those industries. But we need to know who's here. You either need a visa or a green card or citizenship. Otherwise, you don't need to be in the country.
John K. Wilkinson.
Thank you. Many times people can take a complex idea, well, very few people can take a complex idea and make it simple. A lot of people take something simple and make it a lot more complex. I really think that's what Congress does a lot of times. I think, as already been mentioned, there's some simple fixes to this. Number one, we have to secure our borders. We haven't done that at the present time, but we've got to take whatever steps are necessary to secure our borders. Then we have to come up, we've got a legal way for people to come to this country. If they're going to come to this country and stay in this country, they need to they need to do what they need to do legally. There are a lot of people here legally, and everyone needs to follow that. And then finally, we need a temporary worker program that works. It's very important to agriculture, of course, across the country, very important to agriculture in our state. We need a program where workers can come here, do their work, and then leave.
Next question, we'll start with Ethan Underwood. Let's go around, and it deals with examples of your experiences. We're looking for your examples of experience in balancing and operating within a budget.
Well, as I said, I'm an attorney. My office is in Cumming, Georgia. We have 24 employees, and we have had to deal with the nightmare that the COVID-19 crisis has laid at our feet. We've had that hard talk of how do we make sure that we have our employees paid while the partners we're the last ones to get paid. We make a payroll. A lot of candidates in this race can't say they've done that. We make a payroll. I'm experienced with that, and I understand taking that up to Congress and saying we need to live within our means. One of the things that I really want to focus on when I get to Congress is health care reform. As an employer, every year for the last 3 years, our health care insurance has gone up between 18 and 25%. That is a major hindrance to folks who are trying to reopen their businesses now. That we've told them to close, and then now they don't have the funds just to operate, let alone pay their employees' health insurance. We need to go back and look at the health care bill and make sure that we can make that into a manageable process.
John Wilkinson.
I guess to start, I have a pretty good personal credit rating. I think a lot of times you need to look at how people handle their personal finances. That's where you start. And for the past 8 years, I've served on the Appropriations Committee in the State Senate. I've chaired the Subcommittee on Agriculture and Natural Resources and served on the Education Subcommittee. In fact, I attended meetings of both those groups today. Of course, in Georgia, our Constitution requires us to have a balanced budget, to budget it every year. Of course, we're working against that deadline this year. We're coming up on June, and we haven't passed one. But we know that we have to pass a balanced budget by the end of June. I think the secret is there are a lot of good things that you can do, but if you don't have the money, you don't need to spend it. And I think in Georgia, we've shown that you can balance the budget, you can maintain a AAA bond rating, and you can do the things that need to be done. And I think that the federal government could learn some lessons from our legislature in Georgia.
Kevin Tanner.
Well, I appreciate that. And this is really where I separate myself from the other folks running in this race. I have led in this area at the local government level and the state government level and the private sector. As the head of a law enforcement agency with 120 employees, I balanced and led a county budget. as county manager during the Great Recession. If you take a look at some of the commissioners that I worked for, talk about my ability to lead and manage a county and make it debt-free without ever raising taxes. I've led in that area. And as an appropriations member in the Georgia House, I've led in that area at the House. Also, though, I've led in the private sector. I've had 75 personal employees that work directly for me and my businesses. I've started and sold several businesses and still manage several businesses. So I'm the only candidate with both the public and private sector experience. That's why Governor Deal said that I'm the right guy to go to Washington to be able to get this economy going and to create jobs, because I helped do that here in Georgia.
Several states' right to farm laws are under attack. Should there be legislation on the national level to protect our nation's agricultural industry and farmers? Mr. Wilkinson, we start with you.
I think that would be good. One of the things that I've done, because agriculture has been my focus during my service in the legislature, and serving as chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, and when I was elected to the state Senate, I was asked which committee assignments I wanted. My entire life and career has been in agriculture, so it's really a dream come true for me to have the opportunity to chair the Senate Agriculture Committee. But in that capacity, I've had the opportunity to travel around the United States, Canada, other foreign countries, talk with leaders in agriculture from other states and other countries, and many of us are facing similar challenges. Agriculture is our #1 industry. Only 1% of our people are actually farmers, and that makes it real easy to take those for granted. But here in Georgia, it's our largest business. 1 out of every 7 jobs is directly related to agriculture, and it's that way across the nation. One thing that I did as a senator was sponsor Senate Bill 330, which made agriculture education possible in the elementary schools, and that's going to educate our young people about what it takes to produce our food.
Kevin Tanner.
Look, I'm not going to dance around the answer. I 100% believe that we need a right to farm bill in Georgia. House Bill 545 was introduced by Chairman Tom McCall, the agriculture chairman in the Georgia House. We passed that out of the Georgia House in the year it was introduced. It's been held up in the Senate. I fully support the bill. I'm the only person actually running for office that can honestly say they voted for that legislation in the Georgia House and Georgia Senate so far. #1 business in Northeast Georgia is agriculture. I'm the guy that actually does that every day. I've ran a chicken farm. I've farmed the same property we've had for over 160 years. I don't want my neighbors moving in and being able to dictate to me that I can no longer farm. So I fully support right to farm. I voted for it, and I support Chairman Tom McCall's efforts to make that happen here in Georgia.
Ethan Underwood.
I fully support the right to farm bill, and I'm the guy they call to enforce that right. When government oversteps its bounds, when neighbors come in and start saying, well, I don't want to smell that, I don't want to see that, I don't want to hear that, I'm the guy they call to enforce their right. So I absolutely support right to farm. America was founded upon, besides religious freedom, private property rights and economic opportunity and economic freedom. The right to farm bill protects your ability to use your land, and farmers are under attack. You're seeing growth come in, you're seeing folks that now have feel like they have a right to use your property, even though you're the one paying taxes for it. You're the one working the land, you're the one who bought it. Yet they feel that they have a right to say what you do with it. I have fought for private property rights for the last 17 years as an attorney. I'll continue to fight for private property rights in Congress.
Final question, will you commit publicly tonight that you will not support any additional tax increases, whatever that might look like, in your tenure of Congress if elected? Kevin Tanner.
Yes, I have signed a tax pledge not to support increasing taxes on our citizens.
Ethan Underwood.
Yes, I've signed a similar pledge for tax neutrality. I do think that there is some give and take. Maybe we ought to reduce taxes here and change it elsewhere. You do have to provide revenue, but I have signed and do pledge to the public watching that I will not increase your net taxes. We just need to find the best way and the fairest way to collect those.
And John Wilkinson.
I would commit to that, and I have voted that way during my tenure in the General Assembly. I'm proud of the fact that in Georgia, 90% of our citizens 65 years old and older pay 0 state income tax. I'm proud that during my tenure in the General Assembly that we passed a bill that took the state sales tax off our manufacturing, that helped bring manufacturing back to our state. Energy cost is the second largest cost in manufacturing, second only to labor, so I'm proud that we passed that bill. And the other legislation we passed, I'm not just for not passing any tax increases, I'm for cutting taxes.
We thank each of you for being here. Time for closing comments. We'll go in the reverse order, which does not change you. Ethan, you stay there in the middle, but we'll start with Mr. Wilkinson and work down. Mr. Wilkinson, 30
I want to make it very clear that I am completely in favor of the National Right to Farm Law and the Georgia Right to Farm Law. As chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, I had the option of hearing the bill or not. I heard the bill in the Senate. We passed it out of the Senate Agriculture Committee. We passed it out of the Rules Committee, and it made it to the floor. The Democrats in the Senate took a caucus position that every one of them would oppose it. We had some questions from some urban Republicans. It's on the table. It was tabled. I feel confident we'll take it off and pass it before the end of the session. It's good to be with the people here from Farm Bureau. I appreciate the work you do, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Ethan Underwood.
Folks, I'm not a politician. I'm an attorney who fights government. Every day, I protect private property rights against government encroachments. I'm pretty good at it. I would love to take that skill set to DC to work for you. I'm good at navigating government systems. I'm good at working out agreements, and I'm good at fighting. I would be honored to have your vote. Visit my website at voteethanunderwood.com. Call me at 770-842-1007. Let me earn your vote.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Tanner.
Look, Washington is broken. That's why I'm running. My family's lived in this Northeast Georgia area for over 220 years. We don't need more politicians in Washington. We don't need more attorneys in Washington. What we need is folks who can support President Trump. Small business owners, people who understand how to create wealth, who have to create businesses and drive the economy. That's what we need in Washington. I know how to lead. I have the most diverse background in this race, and I'm prepared to go support President Trump.
Thank you three for being here tonight, for offering your services. We appreciate that. Thank you for watching. And Chip Brooks, who is our legislative chair for the Hall County Farm Bureau, will be here next with our closing comments to wrap us up tonight. Chip?
Thank you, Joel, and thank you, candidates. So we'll take just a second to first of all thank each one of you for taking your time to participate and to view this Habersham County Farm Bureau political forum for our district. We understand how valuable your time is, and we really do appreciate you giving us your time. We want to take just a second to thank all of our local media partners. That's the Northeast Georgia, now Habersham, WCON Radio, WRWH Radio, WCHM Radio, Raider TV, and Windstream Channel 4. And we also want to take a minute to thank Joel Williams, our moderator, and Alan D. Smith, our timekeeper. We really appreciate them, their willingness to serve in their capacity today and giving up their time. I do want to say one thing that we failed to say up front, just to make sure everybody understands. Habersham County Farm Bureau does not support nor endorse any candidate, agenda, or movement. The only purpose for sponsoring these forums is to educate the voters of Habersham and surrounding counties and to encourage them to participate in our electoral process. Many of you probably only know of Habersham County Farm Bureau from our insurance offerings, but one of our primary goals is to promote agriculture through the political arena. We're pleased to present all of these candidates to you, the voters, so that you can cast an educated vote. If you're interested in stopping by our office, you can have one of our I Farm, I Vote yard signs, decals, or pins. Those are free of charge, and we'd love to provide you one of those. Thank you again for being with us tonight.